Having a way to communicate among your prepper community when the grid's down is one of the greatest tools you can have at your disposal. In this video, we'll be showing you how we run radio communications and showing you the different parts we think you should consider having in your communications network for off-grid use. Personally, we run GMRS radios for our communication needs for SHTF, but this could also be accomplished with using ham radios or other like-styled radios. GMRS radios are the options I chose because the licensing is easy to get at $35 for 10 years and covers your entire immediate family. If you're using it outside of an emergency, during the emergency, license requirements are typically suspended so long as it isn't interfering with emergency radio communications and is being used related to the emergency. Now keep in mind, I'm not a lawyer when I say that, and I'm just going off my understanding, so take it as you will. I do want to point out as well before we hop onto the equipment itself that with GMRS radios and ham radios, they are public frequencies and encryption isn't allowed or able to be done with most of these radios. You can set up privacy tones on a channel, but they do not prevent others from hearing your radio traffic. Instead, they only act as filters, so your radios only pick up transmissions that are being broadcasted using the same privacy tones. I do want you to keep that in mind, as operational security is a thing you want to consider when using radios in a crisis. It may be prudent to have some predetermined communication references for people in your group that, well, they will understand, but that other parties outside of that won't. The place I started and recommend most people start would be to get a handheld radio. Handheld radios come in all shapes and sizes for GMRS and are capped at 5 watts of power. There are some great budget options in the $30 to $60 range, including the Baofeng, BTEC, and Retevis, to name a few brands. If you want to drop a little bit more coin, you also could look into options such as the Ocean radios for something that feels a little bit more durable in the hand. A true GMRS radio is rated for the full 5 watts and usually has a removable antenna. Don't confuse the bubble pack radios you can buy at sporting goods stores or Walmart for real GMRS radios. Those radios might say GMRS on the package, but they're actually FRS radios which transmit at a lower power, have non-removable antennas, and due to their design have significantly less range. A true GMRS radio is versatile. Their batteries tend to be able to last for several hours, up to several days, depending on how much they are getting used. GMRS handhelds can also be fitted with bigger and better antennas to help increase range, and there are a variety of accessories available for them like speaker mics, throat mics, and extended batteries you can get to use with these radios. A couple examples I have here in front of me is this guy right here. This is a Midlands radio, and this is one of those bubble pack radios I mentioned. This is going to have significantly less range versus this guy right here, which is a true GMRS radio with the speaker mic attached. So when you're looking around, you want radios that are this style. Now, keep in mind as well, you can get different accessories for these, like the speaker mic didn't come with it. It's an added-on accessory for this specific Baofeng radio. You also can get extended antennas, like this right here, that's on this little radio, or you can get folding antennas, which these are more similar in style to what you see on military radios. You also, if you're using these on gear, such as a plate carrier, can get relocation cables and run those antennas and put them out of the way like back here. And you can get items as well, like auxiliary cords that can hook into your speaker mics or push to talks, so you can hook them into your earring protection. So that way you can hook these all up and use comms with any equipment like this and be using that handheld integrated into your gear. So that's why we would, for example, really want to show you these and have you moving towards handhelds as your first radio. The second part of a communications network we do want you to look into, though, is having a mobile radio. Mobile GMRS radios can come in as low as a 5-watt radio, but typically range up to 50 watts, and they're going to be mounted in something with wheels like a truck, car, UTV, or ATV, hence the term mobile radio. Mobile radios have an antenna that is separate from the radio itself and usually come mounted on the roof of the vehicle. These radios tap into the vehicle's power supply, which is able to provide that significantly higher amount of power than the small lithium batteries you'll find on a handheld radio. Having the antenna mounted in a place such as the roof and having more power behind that radio will provide you some longer ranges over its handheld counterparts. So in front of me right here is an MXT 275. This is just a Midlands handheld radio. It's a 15-watt radio. So this guy is by no means towards the higher end of that power scale, but this works relatively well. I've personally gotten out with radios like this at just 15 watts going to about 12 miles. I can hit repeaters up to 30 miles away so far with my experience. With radios like these, they usually do come with these little magnetic antennas like this guy right here that can just get slapped on the roof of a car or a truck. and plugged into the radio and ran through the door, and you're good to go and ready to start moving with just that right there if you decide to get a mobile radio. But you can get stuff like a larger magnetic mount or put an MMO mount on your vehicle if you want it to be permanently mounted, and move up to an antenna like this. This is going to give you that best case scenario when it comes to getting range and power out there and broadcasting your signal out and receiving signal from other parties. A third component of a radio setup is what we're going to call a bag radio or a radio pack. This particular option is either going to be extremely useful or serve little purpose depending on your plans and situations. These radios are typically set up in a self-contained unit that uses a detached antenna, similar to the same size antenna you would mount on a vehicle like this guy right here. Oftentimes, these radios are set up in ammo cans with a large battery pack, and they have the ability to run off that battery, solar power, a wall plug, or even hook into a vehicle port. And they typically contain up to a 50-watt radio. These radios really shine if you're going to be moving on location, somewhere on foot, where you will be for a while, and you want that power and range that is more comparable with a mobile radio or even in some cases a base station. Because these detached antenna designs allow you to run that external antenna up to a high point in the terrain or run it higher up into a tree, the range you get with those radios as well is going to far surpass a handheld radio, even if the handheld radio is using an external antenna or a extended antenna like this guy right here. And I will try to drop an example of that on the screen as well if I haven't already. The fourth type of radio setup to consider would be a base station radio. In the GMRS world, a base station radio typically is going to be the same type of radio as a mobile radio, with the main difference being how it's deployed. A base station radio is typically going to be mounted in a structure and run off the power used in that structure. The base station radios use an external antenna that's mounted on the roof of the structure, or it could even be on a dedicated tower outside the structure, putting that antenna far up above the roof line and the surrounding terrain, which is going to give it superior range to the other options. Like the bag radio, these are options that you may find very useful or that you may have very limited use for depending on your environment, and I would only recommend looking into investing one of these as soon as you have your other options covered. The fifth item to add into your communication suite, and that's going to greatly increase the capability of your other equipment in a grid down scenario, would be a repeater.